Welcome to the second Nerdist School Network comic book podcast crossover. I think that's all right there. This time we're talking about Logan. And so I'm Chris Lord from Timm Talk, and I guess we'll just go around the table here and introduce ourselves.
I'm Cameron Dexter from Timm Talk.
I'm Amanda Barnes from The Novice and Frank.
I'm Frank from The Novice and Frank.
I am Chris Finbress from the podcast of Two Worlds.
And I'm Trevor Reese, also from the podcast of Two Worlds.
Copycat.
I don't know who's the first Chris, but what'd you guys think of Logan?
Loved it.
Yeah.
I thought it was great.
It's amazing, fucking amazing.
And the character of Wolverine, for me, is really personal. Like, it goes between me and my entire family. I used to love the 90s cartoon. I used to freak out every time it would come on. And then so my older brothers used to start messing with me where they're like, well, you know, I'm Wolverine. And I used to get real upset and cry and want to fight them. I'm Wolverine, how could you say that? So, I mean, to see a film, a Wolverine film, live up to my expectations, I mean, it was tremendous.
I'm looking at you right now, and you have Wolverine on your shirt, which is perfect.
Yeah, and I have him in my heart, I feel, at all times.
Aw,
right there.
He's like Santa.
So special.
I used to get like that when I would play Ninja Turtles with my cousins, and they would want to make me April. I'd be so angry.
That's some
I am
bullshit.
Leo. I am Leonardo. I'd get so mad. Sexist. But yeah, Logan.
Well, I just have a question, Chris. So somebody that's Wolverine's in their heart. So how you felt about Wolverine's portrayal so far?
It took me a while to get used to it. You know, I didn't really like the first couple of movies, just because I was so like into Wolverine as a comic book character and in the cartoons. It was kind of hard for me to like, accept like that's Wolverine. But as I got older and more movies came out, you appreciate that this is just a version of that. And in this cinematic universe where that's Wolverine, I thought he did a great job.
Wait, so you didn't like X2?
Not really. I mean,
Interesting.
I mean, they're as opposed to X3. Yeah, no, it's a good movie. And I would say it's better than the first X-Men. But I don't think, you know what I mean. Especially all the movies that we have out now. And like I'm critical of those movies, but they did make break a lot of ground and make a lot of way for these movies to be made. So I appreciate them for that. But as far as this one, I feel like this, even it being a Wolverine movie, was still the best X-Men movie, like right, and then second would be Days of Futures Past for me.
Do you still appreciate Wolverine Origins?
No, I was fucking furious when that movie came out.
Does anyone appreciate Wolverine Origins?
I think for Liev Schreiber, him as Sabretooth, that was a great recast.
You know, I will give you that, actually. He is really good in that. I know there were rumors that he might make an appearance in Logan.
Oh, I thought he should have.
Yeah, and I would have liked to see him come in there, but what can you do?
Cameron?
I loved the film. It was fantastic. It was such an interesting kind of take on the superhero genre where, I mean, we talked about it briefly in Lego Batman, where everyone's just trying to deconstruct the stereotypical setup of this film, of this genre now, that it's nice to see when people, you know, play with different aspects. Like, my big takeaway from this was how little action there was in this movie. And I really enjoyed that. You really got to live with the character and live with these connections, and it wasn't just about flashy. You know, it was the first half of the Wolverine. Like, I love when you just kind of get to live with these characters and be a part of their lives, and then, you know, a giant metal robot pops up. Or a clone, you know. No, I mean, there's so much that I want to say that's so good about this movie.
Well, what do you think it says about just the X-Men franchise that this and Deadpool are probably the two most successful versions, and they have just pretty much one solo character and kind of strip it down to maybe a few kind of supporting characters, but that's pretty much it. Does that say, like, these X-Men films works better if with fewer characters?
I think they know their audience. They know their audience. They know people that have grown up with these characters are now of the people who watched the animated show when they were kids are now the age to buy R-rated movie tickets. You know what I mean? So, and those are the people that I feel like to an extent they're making these films for. You know, they don't have to dumb everything down because the people who grew up loving these characters are now of the age to make the decisions about what films they want to see. And that's amazing. And getting anybody to go spend $20 on, which I had to spend to see this movie, by the way, you guys, spent $20 to see this movie.
Yeah, same.
It was a really nice theater, but still, holy crap. But, like, you know, to get people to spend that to go and see a film in real time versus, like, I'll catch it when it's out later when everything's so easy to stream is really impressive. You know, I think they know their audience. You look like you're gonna argue with me.
Well, no, but I'm also saying it's like a year after X-Men Apocalypse, which that was a terrible movie.
Yeah.
Did anybody see X-Men Apocalypse?
No, yeah, I did.
Yeah.
I didn't love it, but
like-
I think to your point, it's also like it's none of the audience, but the tone too, right? It's like making these movies rated R worked because like Deadpool is just raunchy and sweary and bloody and violent, and Logan's an asshole, and like letting him get to be violent and just I love that they got Professor X to start dropping F-bombs too. Like that made me so happy. It's such a departure from his character, but like
Anytime Patrick Stewart curses, it's just like a gift.
it's so delightful, right? You just can't help but smile even if he's really cantankerous. And I think that they just knew like, well, let's just make the most authentic version of these movies, and that just happened to be that they work better as rated R. But I think that's what other movies, including some of the X-Men movies, haven't known quite what to do, is what's the tone to strike.
Yeah.
Well, and that's why what's so weird about the R-rated Batman vs Superman. Like, though, I mean, I know all of us have talked ourselves blue in the face about why that movie sucks, but it's cool to see that Deadpool like created this market and allowed for these movies to finally be R-rated. But we're gonna start seeing like the bad side of that now too, of like forcing the grittiness onto characters who don't deserve that. Because Deadpool, yeah, Wolverine, yeah, these guys exist in worlds that are dark.
Fantastic Four. Let's
Fantastic
do
Four.
it.
Let's make it dark and Cronenberg-y. Like, yeah, that'll sell.
That's
like,
what they've been missing. That's
Yeah.
why they're 0 for 4.
When I
They
think
just
of
haven't
Jack
had that R
Kirby,
rating.
the king,
That's just
Cronenberg.
For me, it's just consistency, right? In this, it was consistent. They set the tone. The tone happened to suit the character, and they maintained that reality throughout. You know, when you saw Stephen Merchant's name come up, I was like,
Oh, yeah.
man. And he was fantastic.
Oh, yeah.
Because he's a good actor, right? Who gets typecast, and I think did well as that role, as that part. But I think that I agree with you. I'm a little worried they're going to be like, oh, well, people are spending money on R-rated movies. Like, that's what we got to do. It's like it only works if it comes from a place of suiting the character and serving the story, you know? And I think this did.
Yeah, and absolutely. And you guys talking about tone absolutely nails it on the head. And I think with like Captain America, Winter Soldier, it was kind of like a political thriller. I think you could do different genres with just superhero characters. And I think this being like a Western, I think that's a good sign going forward. Not that it's R-rated, but it was able to tap into this completely other genre with these superhero characters. So you're not just watching superhero movies.
Yeah. I think it was really cool. I think for Patrick Stewart to be able to play a different range in that character was really cool for me.
Oh,
Did
yeah.
you guys think that was awesome? Because how often, I mean, how old is he in real life? He's
Late 70s?
He's older.
70s
So
something?
what a beautiful thing, I think, to be able to play on that when people are, I'm sure as you age, I see it happen, you know, people start to treat you like you're like, oh, senile or whatever. You know what I mean? It's like, and you get to play this character that I think plays into those frustrations of being like, I'm not, like, I know, I'm right. You know, stop treating me like I'm a child because I've got years and years of experience.
Yeah, and he calls him out at the beginning in that first scene that they have together when Logan's leaving. He says, "You're just waiting for me to die." Basically.
Yeah, and it's cool to see. I think it's impressive to see new range being given to that character played by that actor who's played him now so many times that they're still
Yeah.
finding cool ways of exposing the layers of that character.
Yeah, I mean, how often? I mean, so what? The first movie came out in
2000.
99. 2099. I don't know, whatever. But I mean, I think people keep saying 17 years is about the time frame from the original one to this one. Like, for Patrick Stewart, like this is such a huge departure from where he started. Now, I'm probably the one person in this room that didn't love this movie. I liked it. I didn't love it. So, but I'm curious what you guys think. Did you actually think that Wolverine's arc in this was that much different than every other movie they've had him in? Because his kind of traditional arc is he wants nothing to do with whatever people want him to do, and then eventually turns around on it. And I felt like that was kind of the same thing again. Maybe done better,
for
but
his
it's kind of the
character,
same thing,
definitely.
yeah.
But I think what this movie did better was have it be a lesson for Laura. I feel like because he said, you know, a man can't break his mold. You know what I mean? He's Mark, and you can't shake that mark. So I think Logan is who he is. At the beginning of the movie, he's trying to like hide from that and this and that. But I think him teaching that to Laura about her not being turned into what they made him, like leads to her not being in that Wolverine trope of having to go through that over and over again.
I will say the one part of the film that I did have an issue with is when they go to Vegas and they're hanging out at the hotel, and then Xavier has a seizure again. I feel like that was very repetitive of the first time we had that, back when they're still in Mexico. So I was like, oh, I feel like, I don't know if we really gained a lot out of that sequence. I feel like you could have stripped that out of the film and really not have lost anything.
I think it's more just like creatively, you just have to introduce it. Because what that scene illuminates is he was the one responsible. Because I mean, a lot of us knowing the basis of this, knowing the Old Man Logan story, I think we're all sort of assuming Wolverine caused the death. Wolverine is the reason for their exile. Wolverine is the reason for his own brokenness. We really find it's Xavier was the cause of it. That we find that what he did at the casino was what he did in Manchester and killed the X-Men. And so I see what you're saying, because it does sort of lose that oomph, but it also does introduce it, because if you're just introduced to Xavier losing his mind all of a sudden, then you're just like, wait, what the hell, like, what's going on? But I get what you're saying.
I mean, the other thing they do introduce is that he's watching Shane there with Laura, and then they bring in the Shane kind of callbacks in there. But I still feel like, man, that was a lot. Oh, other than getting to see a slow motion, knives slicing into a man's face. Then, all right, then there you go.
There was some pretty cool stuff in there, yeah.
I thought Shane was such a perfect inclusion. Like, it's so symbolic of what they tell us very similar stories. But I thought, because they were mentioning Shane, that it was good, the movie, and we don't have to jump to this so soon, but I will say I thought it was going to end a little more ambiguously, because Shane famously ends ambiguously with whether or not Shane dies at the end. Whether or not Shane is riding off into the sunset and he's dead because the kid calls out to him like, Shane, Shane, and he doesn't look back. And there's a theory as to whether or not Shane has died in the saddle or not as he's riding off. And so I was wondering if the movie was going to take that same cue and give Wolverine a little bit more of an ambiguous ending than what we got, which was clearly very definitive.
Oh.
What I was ready for was post-credit scene, hand pops out.
That's what I thought too. Just
we
like,
start
like
the Marvel zombie movement.
Like one little tiny shunk, like the one that he'd been messing with all film, just like slowly pulls up.
The dirt starts to shake up.
Yeah.
Oh, no. Well, he's 200, like, going off the cinematic X-Men universe, he's nearly 200 years old.
Yeah.
I looked it up. It's 1845 is when his claws pop. So he would have been born in, like, the 30s, like early 30s, 1830s.
Oh, wow.
So considering this is 2029, he's closing in on 200 years old.
It looks good.
He does.
He does, yeah.
Looks really, really good. But yeah, it just also shows like he's been at this for so long.
I have a novice question. What did Xavier do to kill the X-Men? Why?
Oh, so I wanted to bring...
What happened?
I wanted to
I'm
bring
kind
this
of
up.
glad they didn't bring it up in the movie, because I'm like, oh, well, it's clear with so many lines that you know what I mean, that you don't know, but it still gets the point across. But I still want to know what happened.
Okay, so you think it does still give enough information?
I have questions, and I'm actually like familiar to an extent with the
So
with the
they
property,
interviewed the
but-
director, and the original script called for the original seizure being the first scene of the movie. He had a seizure, and I guess it went on long enough that it actually started killing the X-Men. And Wolverine, because he has like his adamantium, I assume that's usually the.
Well, I would assume it'd be his healing factor.
Yeah, the healing factor. He was the only one that could survive and gave him the antidote, and so that's why he kind of brings it upon himself to take care of him. At least that was my interpretation.
But how come there were no? I remember we talked about this, but I don't remember. Like, why were there no mutants born after that? That doesn't solve that problem, right?
What was the guy's name? Xavier Rice, right?
Donald Price, and then
Donald Pierce and Xavier Rice. Yeah. So
there you go.
I guess I think I understood this. Rice had been basically introducing a mutant gene suppressant. That's why no more mutants were being born. And then I think, Cameron, were you saying that was also he was also killing them too, or I couldn't quite figure that part out.
Well, he rounded them up, right? He said, early on, Caliban helped that company round up the mutants that were left. And even like when they stop and they meet that guy and his family on their farm, the guy even talks about, all the company's been buying up all these fields so they can make their own stuff. Mm-hmm. And that's what they're using to suppress the mutant gene in people.
Yeah.
Corn syrup.
Were they also? Was the suppressant also killing some of them too? That's why, or maybe.
No. I imagine they rounded them up and started just killing them. But that's why there hasn't been a mutant born in 25 years.
Yeah. Yeah, because some of that was a little bit confusing. And I mean, let's be honest, the X-Men timeline is a disaster.
Yeah.
Complete disaster. So, I mean, is this supposed to have taken place after Days of Future Past, or are we just kind of running the assumption that it's kind of its own thing?
It does take place after Days of Future Past. I don't know exactly how many years, but it does take place after that. That's as far as like James Mangold said.
Okay, yeah, because I think Days of Future Past, the flash forward was what 2023, 2024, and this is 2029.
But now it's an alternate universe.
Well, the universe that we see at the end when Wolverine's talking
when
to
Cyclops has his weird new goggles.
Yeah, he's got
Cyclops and
goggles
Jean are
Jean
back.
there, and we see Hank McCoy
Yeah.
and everything. So that's from that point. So this is about 5 years from that flash forward, which we
Okay.
assume Wolverine is brought back to the same point of Days of Futures Past, just on this cleaned up timeline where the Sentinels didn't take over the world. It's just the same point in time.
Yeah. I guess
It's
that
fucked.
that didn't quite fly for me. Just a little bit.
There was the idea thrown out that I really enjoy, that the continuity only exists for what you're watching in the movie before it.
Oh,
and
yeah.
everything else is just kind of, up in the air. It's always a 2-movie continuity if you scroll through the films.
That kind of works.
With the obvious exception being Wolverine Origins. Forget all of that.
No, it fits everything. That's the constant.
If you think about like the X-Men films are all like kind of depressing because they constantly keep losing and getting killed off or eliminated, and then so you see always at the end. Do you want to see the X-Men always just being on the losing end and always being kind of mutants being kind of diminished? And
Well, that's been happening in the comics for the last however many years, right?
and I've not enjoyed that either.
Yeah, me neither. And they're just now starting to kind of ramp up the mutant involvement in Marvel Comics, which I don't know why they went away and tried to get replaced with Inhumans and all that. But so yeah, I mean, the mutants are always kind of destined to lose, and no matter what medium you kind of view them in.
Yeah, I guess I didn't. Maybe part of the reason I didn't love this one was that it was yet another kind of like extreme dystopian kind of case for the X-Men. Like we'd seen it once, the Days of Future Past, and it got resolved. But I think part of it for me too is that like as much as I love this as like a standalone Logan, it also does feel like it is the end too of like all the movies that started back in '99, right? So whatever we get from this point on is going to be with the new cast, and I love that new cast. But I think part of it for me is I haven't felt like we've had a real version of the X-Men as superheroes. Yeah. In a good version of that in a long, long time. And I guess I couldn't get past the fact that this was basically saying like, well, we're done with that. And I'm totally cool with having a totally different out there like standalone version, but I just haven't been super satisfied with an X-Men movie in a long time. And so that was a little bit like,
Because I think it does make it seem like Days of Future Past is wrong, but they make the clean timeline. Everybody's alive again, and it's great. But no, we still end up at a really crappy place anyway.
Yeah, we get nothing in between, and like it's clear.
I think all of the sweet X-Men stuff that happened in that universe happened in the comics that Logan had.
Yeah, clearly, yeah.
Like
I
they
want
had
those
all the
comics.
suits on, they're all
Yeah.
traveling together. It looked real sweet, but I guess only a quarter of it happened.
Yeah, we never got the suit.
know,
But
that
we
bum-
did
that
get the
bums me
hair.
out.
We got the facial hair though.
Oh yeah,
That was pretty
good
great.
moment at the end.
I was pretty pleased with that. For me, I haven't seen it's been years since I've seen an X-Men film. It's been so long since I've watched one on TV or gone to a theater and seen one. So for me, this one, in my mind, I'm basing it kind of more as its own standalone thing. Even though it is the end of this arc, I loved it just as its own film. Completely. I think I still had questions, but I think you could walk in and see this movie. A girlfriend of mine came and saw it with me, and I don't think she had any idea, like maybe what we were seeing or what she was getting into, because I heard her go, "Holy shit, she's a kid!" Like next to me, as the girl was like attacking, and I'm like, "You had no idea, did you? Like what you were even getting into?" But I think just as a film, I think it's really well put together and really nicely done. And I think it makes you ask enough questions about the backstory, but I think you can watch it and understand it and enjoy it without necessarily knowing too much about the backstory. But I don't know, that's just me.
Also, it shows how much this whole film franchise has been based on Patrick Stewart and Hugh Jackman.
Yes.
Like the entire thing.
I'm
is
kind of
just
like, uh-oh.
yeah,
You guys
like,
are
was
screwed.
He was the first one to find Wolverine. Like the X-Men movie is Xavier sort of trying to pull Wolverine back from the brink, and that's always sort of been their relationship. like throughout it. It's just been throwing Hugh Jackman and Patrick Stewart together, and you'll get a good movie. Yeah. And this was just like, screw it, take out all the other X-Men, all the bad Rogue, shitty Cyclops, Jean Grey that we never really got right, and the two characters who have always delivered. And I mean, I agree with Chris's critiques of Wolverine as an embodiment of the comic book character, but I think the two of them have consistently nailed the tone of their characters and really understood them in such a way that nobody else really did. Even like the people who had time in the characters, like Ellen Page's Kitty Pryde, or like some of the other ones, like, all right, maybe, but like these two guys were the ones who got it consistently throughout, and then we just see an entire movie built on it, and they're the last two X-Men. It was fucking awesome.
Yeah, I thought that was cool.
Do you? I was thinking about this before. Would you have wanted to see Magneto in this? I mean, he doesn't really fit the story, but I think he's part of the. I feel like Ian McKellen has done a pretty good job as coming from someone that hasn't read
for
many
sure.
of the
Like, I don't want to diminish that, but also like.
But you did.
But I did. But I feel like Magneto's sort of Xavier's Sabretooth. It would have been cool to see their thing wrapped up, but I think probably Magneto's dead.
Yeah.
He's got to be dead.
Oh yeah.
And we don't see, he's one of the characters we don't see at the end of Days of Future Past, too. Like, I think deliberately they didn't want to go there so that we don't know what happens to him. So I think they want to have at least a little bit of runway with Fassbender if they ever bring him. I'm assuming they'll bring him back.
Yeah, I mean, you would think that the helmet would stop all the seizures, like getting through, right?
yeah,
when he
that's a
was
good
freaking
point.
out. Like, that's what he designed the helmet for, to keep Xavier out.
Wait, why didn't they just put Magneto's helmet on top of Charles?
Vroom.
Wouldn't that have done it?
I mean,
That's true.
It's too uncomfortable, damn it.
That's
I
true.
can't wear this fucking thing. I don't have hair. It fucking chafes.
That's true.
Although, that would have been like kind of like they had those cool throwbacks in the original Old Man Logan series, like Dwight's bridge where he's got the Ant-Man helmet on. It would have been cool, like while Xavier's in like the throes of his insanity when we first meet him, to see him like wearing the Magneto helmet. Just be like, because he was like doing like his Patrick Stewart Shakespearean voice throughout that whole scene. It would have been interesting to see him like even more crazed, like wearing that helmet, and maybe when like he's medicated, he takes the helmet off or something like that. But that might have been cool.
I would like very much to see a Magneto Professor X musical
Oh yeah.
where they get together and they battle and then they become friends at the end and then they sing a song. That's I'm just gonna put that into the universe.
Yes, I'm on board for that.
I saw them perform "Waiting for Godot" on Broadway, the two of them together, and it was like
I was
the
gonna
most,
say, like, they did a show together.
yeah, it was like the most magical pairing I've ever. And they're just BFFs. They're just best friends, and I'm like, just do something. I just want to see both of them, just the two of them together, being those characters in a farcical musical way.
They are adorable together.
They are. They're
I
really
just
cute.
I could watch a whole movie. Yeah.
Yeah.
There was,
Oh, yeah.
Two of them.
was it there a couple years ago? There was was it Las Vegas, where they got kind of the older Hollywood stars to come together and
yeah.
do like a Vegas story. We can just have that with them.
Oh yeah,
Exact same story, just
better.
no, not even. They'll make it better. Just same script, and you'll see just those two actors will just make it that much better.
It'd be great.
The two of them will do all 4 parts.
Yeah.
Just the split between the two
So
of them.
good.
They're so good.
Guys, so we get somebody on the phone.
Speaking of Patrick Stewart, was everybody happy with the way that he left the picture?
I thought that was a dream. I thought it was a dream sequence.
Yeah.
I thought you were like, I thought it was a dream. I was like,
It
really?
was spectacular. Yeah, there was. So the reason I brought up Magneto was there was one interview that had Patrick Stewart, Hugh Jackman, and Ian McKellen all on the couch together, and they asked McKellen, like, "Oh, are you upset that you weren't in the movie?" And he gave a very vague answer, kind of like dodging the question almost. And so when you saw the claws go through his chest, I thought that like Magneto was controlling him,
Ooh.
or it was like him kind of living his biggest fear. And then I was a little let down when it wasn't. But yeah, I mean, it was sad, and I kind of wished that he got to say that to actual Wolverine.
Right.
But yeah, it was.
But just one moment of peace, like after being crazy and kept in this crazy bunker in Mexico for so long, just to have him that one like, oh, I'm in my head, I understand, and I feel this, but there was a little bit of happiness there. That part I like. The whole clone of Wolverine thing, I'm sure we'll talk about, right?
Yeah, I think that for me that kind of undercut that moment a little bit because that was a really powerful moment with Charles kind of like getting his last little moment, saying goodbye, and giving us a little bit of information about what happened back at Westchester, and it was really sweet and then shocking, and then like, wait, the fuck, it's a clone, and that was the most ridiculous element, and so I was glad that throughout the rest of the movie that was actually played down.
Yeah,
I thought it was gonna be like the whole rest of the movie was gonna be the clone chasing him.
Soldiers, like a whole. I was afraid that what was coming was a whole like super soldier army of Logans.
Yeah,
That would
Do you know
be
what I mean?
great.
actually, yeah. Hang
Clone
on,
army?
It's just
a
like
world full of Hugh Jackmans.
Prime.
Chris,
Jackman
Chris,
at the
Oh yeah,
prime.
sorry. Okay, yeah.
not bad,
Yeah.
not bad.
Well, we always joke that it's the Vin Diesel story, where like no one can beat Vin Diesel except
Vin Diesel. Yeah,
No one could kill Wolverine except Wolverine.
Right.
so true.
But if you look at the Xavier thing, it's his choice that he makes everybody stay in that house. Wolverine wants to keep going.
Yeah.
Like, no, we're in a home. We're going to stay here for the night. And then everything goes down. So it's not only he that gets killed, but then that whole family they're staying with, they end up getting killed as well, just because
Yeah.
Xavier was selfish.
Or just tired.
That piece
Road
of
weary.
shit.
He's
Like
"So he
100
wanted to take a
years
nap
old.
and got everyone killed. What an asshole.
It's just a tired old man.
Well, Chris, I mean, you did bring it up, the clone Wolverine. Like so many times in superhero films, it ends up they fight their opposite number or just like a duplicate of themselves. What's the consensus of the room? Did people like the idea that he fought a X-24?
No, I didn't like if you were gonna do a copy Wolverine, just do mechanical Wolverine since the Reavers are the enemy of this film and they're all mechanically enhanced. So if you had a mechanical Wolverine thing, I could see that. But I felt like if you were gonna have Sabretooth anywhere in the movie, that would have been a cool place to bring him in.
Almost like Albert from the comics.
Yes, exactly. Who was designed by Pierce in the comics.
I didn't mind it so much, but there were some things that bothered me that I was like, did another scene go here that got cut for time? Because they had that whole thing where they're like, well, he only listens to the doctor. And the doctor's like, hey, come here, boy, come here. And then he just kept ignoring him. So I thought I was like, oh, Clone Wolverine's going to kill the doctor. He's going to be like, yeah, right, motherfucker, I'm not listening to you anymore. And that didn't happen. So I thought it was it was a little weird. Like it felt like information was given that wasn't paid off later. So I thought that was a little strange.
Yeah, I didn't love it either. Because what I really liked up to that point was that because they had depowered Logan to the point where other people were a real threat to him, that just kind of made it more interesting. But I was a little worried going in that the antagonism was going to be kind of soft in the third act, and I thought that their solution was kind of clunky, which is like, oh, we'll just get a younger, better version, more powerful version like that. Well, I didn't think it was as clever as the rest of the movie had been in terms of doing something different.
I don't know. I feel like this whole movie is deconstructing what Wolverine's left the world, and that's his rage and everything. He's like his animal instinct, which is embodied with the clone, and then there's the goodness and humanity that he's found in himself, and that's in Laura. So that was how I was reading it. I see everything like it is, like especially what Frank was saying, like the third act. Iron Man fights the Ironmonger, Captain America fights Red Skull, Thor fights, like all of them are opposite number fights. But with this one, I don't know, it felt like it was so tightly involved in Wolverine and deconstructing this character that I didn't mind that it was a clone, because then it just maintains that circle. It makes it even tighter. Like it is sort of ridiculous that it's a clone of Wolverine, but at the same time, then it keeps the focus on Wolverine and not like Sabretooth or something like that.
Yeah, that's a good point.
I thought they could have used Dakin, his son, and I thought the battle could have been with who's Wolverine's rightful heir, like who takes after him, his biological son who's mad and crazy, or this clone who has his heart. You know, I thought that could have been a cool aspect if you wanted to tackle it that way, like a better reveal of someone to take him down, who if you want to keep that circle closed, you know.
Yeah, for sure.
That actually would have been a really cool idea.
Yeah.
What did you guys think overall of Laura? Just the way they did the
Fucking
character?
amazing.
I love her
Yeah.
so
Probably,
much.
other than the Wolverine Professor X relationship, she was probably the best part of this entire movie.
She was
Oh, yeah.
Killed
wonderful.
it.
She was so good. She literally killed it. She killed it 87 times over the course of this film.
Well, it took an hour and a half where she even says her first word, and she does she's just silent. And she's so good.
Yeah.
in those
Just-
moments.
But you knew what she was thinking and feeling the
Yeah.
entire movie without her having to speak. The actress who played her killed it, man.
And just smart choices being made, I think, with the character. Like, not even just her acting choices, but the way that they wrote her. The choice to make her female, first of all, I think is cool. It could have just easily been like a little boy. And to make her, Mexican native. Like,
Yes.
I think that's
Thank you.
like,
I fucking
baller,
stood up and cheered when she started
know?
speaking Spanish.
It was
That- yeah,
awesome.
that was
It was really
such a cool reveal.
I wanted
was great.
I wanted to bring this up because it's my one like little nitpicky thing. If they're all cloned and raised in Mexico, why is she the only one with an accent?
Well, I don't know. I think most of them look Mexican. And Richter kind of had like an accent where he knew both. But I think she's just like young and feral, and she didn't speak much. And that she did speak, she got in Spanish. But just the fact that I got a bunch of Mexican kids running around with superpowers was the coolest thing I've ever seen in any superhero movie.
It was really cool. And like weirdly, I don't know why it also felt so timely, but it did to me.
Yeah.
It felt very timely in a way that I like. I mean, there's some obvious ways, but I'm like, man, it also in ways that I couldn't fit my finger on because they're trying to get north. They're trying to go to the border to be safe, And I was like, touche, without beating anything over the head.
Yeah, and you
know what
even
I mean?
had the guy standing up in the limo in the beginning when
Oh
Logan's
God,
running.
those
USA,
exactly
USA.
those
Yeah.
douchebags in the limo. Like that. And it looks about right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Welcome to Tijuana.
Yeah, right. Well, and it is really timely too. Because think about it. This would have been written a year and a half, 2 years ago. I would imagine. By the time they actually wrote it till now, and yeah, there is a lot of like really topical themes going through there. But again, yeah, it's like. This is why I love movies like this, because you can have those things in there and you can have those ideas present and they're not like right in your face, but you can connect with them like, oh, like it has a positive thing to say about like people, or it has like it's putting a good idea onto the world, and it doesn't have to be like I don't know, like a topic movie. I don't know the word I'm looking for, but yeah.
No, it didn't throw it in your face like, oh, these kids are a different race and all the other mutants you've ever seen.
Yeah.
It was like, these are kids and they're abused. And Gabriella, the lady who was raising her, even said like, hey, they think that we're poor and stupid. We're poor, but we're not stupid.
Right. Well, I think too. I don't know. I really liked her a lot, and I was like, I don't remember the last time I saw a film with a little kid like that, with a little girl who didn't have a moment where she was like adorable and precious, and like this girl was not adorable nor precious. She was fantastic. And she, her acting chops were amazing, but she was strong and vulnerable in a really adult way, but she was never fucking precious.
But
I love that.
I love that scene where she's just riding on, like when they
yeah.
when Xavier and Wolverine are watching the video, and then they look up and she's just riding the horse.
Oh,
There's
yeah.
just something about like her stare, and it's just like it shows that she's been robbed of her innocence, like fully and completely, to the point of not even even knowing how to handle this like kids ride.
Right.
She's just like sitting like, and it's like almost like when you see her started up again and get to see like her like face
The
straight
little
on.
flicker.
Yeah, it's just like a little bit of flicker, but then she's just like in the motion of it, but yeah, it's just so crazy to see those little flickers and moments too.
Could you imagine if your daughter had adamantium claws and was a ninja?
I'd finally like her. She's finally earned my love. Now, for 17 years, who was excited? Because I know you screamed and jumped up there, but did you scream and jump up when Richter was introduced? Finally, after 17 years, we get Richter in the film.
Yeah, and because I was just expecting side characters that were just invented for the movie, but to have an actual new mutant in there and be that, like, that's him. In that universe, that's Richter. And yeah, that whole thing kind of meant a lot to me specifically,
I want to talk more about, if we can, about Stephen Merchant's character. So you guys all know who he is.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A little bit.
Okay, what's his deal? Because it's kind of the same thing, right? They alluded without. I thought because the movie was already long, and I didn't feel like it was too long, but it was a long movie. So if they had added all this exposition in there, it would have been awful. But I would like to know more about him.
He, in the comics, he's a Morlock, right?
Yeah.
He can track mutants.
That's basically it. He's a Morlock, so he lives under the sewers, and he could basically tell where mutants are. But he comes like a henchman of Apocalypse. He has his own arc, but that's essentially it. And he was also portrayed as a different guy in Apocalypse.
Yeah.
He also wanted to get married to Kitty Pryde really bad.
Who did?
Caliban.
Caliban.
Oh,
There's in the comics, though.
so okay, so that's really it. Like, there's no like.
No.
Why do you think they picked him? I guess just because of the
Because he
skin
could track
sensitivity?
mutants.
Yeah, I guess that must be.
They needed a way to find these guys after hunting them down.
Yeah, you are right though. It is an interesting choice because I mean, the X-Men specifically, just the number of mutants that are out there. Like, I mean, every movie has either had far too many or sometimes not enough, but they're always just kind of packing in random people. But yeah, he had been used before in Apocalypse, so yeah, it is.
I guess they had to find somebody who, in this storyline, if they're going with the way that Professor X killed everyone with a seizure, they had to find a mutant who was not there for that, but still had the ability to be useful to this plot. Do you think that maybe like narrowed it down?
Actually, I guess like, thematically too, I guess he also fits, right? Because Professor X is carrying the guilt of killing the X-Men. Wolverine's carrying guilt from just the vast number of people he's killed all the time, all horrible decisions. And then Caliban too, I mean, he was working with the company to track down mutants, so he's carrying a guilt. So I guess there's something to be said about the fact that like the last remaining adult mutants all in some way have kind of
Racked
betrayed
with
their
guilt.
own people.
Yeah.
So I guess maybe that's part of the reason.
Yeah, that's interesting. All right.
Yeah, I think it really is sort of nailed down in the fact that he has this history with the Reavers as well. Like, I think that's really the strong point of it. And, like, it just sort of works that he has this mutant power to hunt down and track mutants. But really, it's just the fact that we see, like, the cost of what the Reavers have done and seeing, like, what they're able to do, not only to mutants, but also, like, seeing what they've done in the past as well. They're big threats.
Who's the douchebag with the mechanical hand? Is he in the comic books?
I don't know much about Donald Pierce of the Reavers.
He's a member of the Hellfire Club.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
that's right.
But he like his whole thing was he hates mutants. But yeah, he joined the club in order to infiltrate mutants, and I think pretty sure he does have a mechanical hand as well.
But that's why does he hate? Isn't he kind? Well, I guess he's not a mutant because he's just got a mechanical hand.
Yeah,
but
I don't know what.
Just like people who hate something that's different than what they are.
Well, weren't the Reavers?
I know you're filled with a lot of hate, Amanda.
I hate everyone that's different. Everybody that's different than me.
Weren't the Reavers kind of created because people wanted to kind of know what it's kind of like to be a mutant? Because I looked through a couple of the comics, and they have some like very strange enhancements. Like one guy has a cannon arm. That's the only one that I remember. 'Cause
There's a
it's
guy
really
with
cool.
like tank legs. That
Yeah,
roll
the
around.
tank treads.
Oh yeah, wasn't that a version of Donald Pierce that had the?
I hope so.
I think so. Yeah,
Yeah,
I'm
the
pretty
tank legs.
sure at
Hope
one
so.
point. Yeah.
But to beat these mutants that already are born with these spectacular abilities, then you need to. How can you enhance your body?
Right.
Yeah,
able
I
to
mean the
take them
Reavers'
on.
origins in the comics is kind of whatever, but their main purpose really came when they started working for Lady Deathstrike, who's a Wolverine-specific villain, right? And they just started working for her, just mostly to fuck with him.
Her name is Lady Deathstrike.
Yeah.
That
she was-
name is awesome.
Right?
Sorry, man, that's taken.
Yuriko! Yeah, very tragic Wolverine story.
I'm trying to remember the comics. The comic book version of Lady Deathstrike. Is she also mutants or is she just mechanically enhanced?
She's just mechanically enhanced too. She did the reverb process, and she
Oh,
put
okay.
adamantium in her fingers.
Okay, yeah, because the one in X2 is basically just has the same powers as.
God damn, you see, that's what I'm saying. I can't really give all like my love to those movies because they did get a lot of things wrong to me, including Lady Deathstrike.
No, I think that's totally fair.
So, Jesus, got really close on that mic, guys. Sorry about that. So, as we wind up with the X-Men, these Wolverine movies, do you like the idea that it was such a definitive end for Hugh Jackman's Wolverine, or would you rather it would have been just another story, and then we would almost like James Bond it, and then the next time it's just some other actor taking the role of Wolverine?
Oh, I completely respect that this went out like the way it did, especially if this is also Patrick Stewart's last time playing Professor X. I mean, again, these characters had the greatest chemistry of all the X-Men in all the movies. So 17 years is crazy long. So bam, one final story, we both die, and then there's still hope for the new mutants. Let's end it that way. And I thought that was cool. If they both decide not to do it anymore.
Yeah, I think that it felt organic to me. And I think, and Hugh Jackman was like, "No mas, I'm not doing this again." So I feel like it felt natural for the characters. There's nothing that drives me more crazy than something like that. That's like, well, and I guess I'm different. Like my dad, he wants a happy, like the movie to end in a happy place, like for there to be hope, and the good guy gets the girl, and the bad guy is vanquished. And for me, it's like, yeah, but if that feels false for the sake of being positive, it drives me bananas. So I don't know. I thought this was a satisfying ending. It was sad, but the fact that a superhero movie, at the end of the day, that's what it is, in a Western style, resonated. And when he's like, "That's what this feels like," and I was like, "Oh my God, am I tearing up? What is happening?"
Okay, so how many of us cried?
like not cry, but I got a little.
Fucking wept.
Did you? Yeah, I got a little. I mean, for me, that says a lot to all the artistic choices made, the writing, the direction. I think everything that it was able to, that this genre film, if you were just to like lay out the mechanics of it, like the ridiculous parts of it, on paper, that it was able to elicit that kind of emotional response and make you feel invested, I think speaks volumes to it.
Well, I loved. Did anybody else think when he said, "So this is what it feels like"? I feel like the two choices are family and love, and what Xavier was talking about, or this is what death finally feels like after this.
I think
Like
I thought
this
it
is
was
what
death.
I've sent other people on.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
Oh, I didn't even think about that. That's interesting.
I didn't think about that till I heard it like the second time when me and Chris saw it before this. That was just like, oh, that's what he's talking about. He's talking about like, oh, so this is what it feels like.
I kind of thought he meant like this is what it feels like to be a father, because right after that she starts calling him daddy. So I thought like maybe that's where he was going. But I mean, anything that you could pull from, those are all like three good answers that I would accept.
Where does this rank up in great iconic character death scenes? Like compare this to Captain Kirk in Star Trek Generations.
Well, it's well above that.
I mean, even Xavier gets a better death than his first death.
Yeah.
Like this is
Oh,
a better death
that's
than
absolutely
X3.
true. Yeah.
So, I mean, it's also just cool. Like, I like the thought of James Bonding it, but it's also like that's what we've gotten with Spider-Man. We've gotten Spider-Man's just James Bonding it with our third one happening to finally get a definitive end for a comic book. Because even like Old Man Logan ends on open page. Like he's going off into the sunset. He's got Bruce Banner Jr. on his back. He's going to go off and try and save the world. And even like Dark Knight Returns, he dies, but then the end page with him is in the Batcave. Just all right, now we're going to start it again and do it right. And to see like definitive, he's dead. This story is done, and now it is officially Laura's story moving forward. I loved it.
I think it's a great death scene. Like he acts the shit out of it. It made the most sense, and I think it was the most emotionally resonant for him to die right there. I would have liked maybe a little bit of ambiguity. I kind of like those endings that like you feel like this particular story has come to an end, but there's more to go. And maybe part of my problem was that it felt very abrupt. Like there's all this stuff happening, and then there's really no end to the movie. It's basically he just dies, and she goes off with her friends. And I want to keep following Laura, but I also don't really like the world they built in this movie specifically. So I was always kind of hoping that whenever they got rid of Wolverine, Logan as Wolverine, that they would introduce Laura and X-23, and she would kind of take on that role in the broader X-Men and bring that dynamic in. You can't do that now. I guess I want to see her story continue, but I don't really want to see the adventures of Laura in a world where there are no other mutants, really. I don't know.
I think they should have taken the ending of X3 and just tacked it on the end of this, where you see Magneto in the park, and you're like,
he just wiggles the chest piece.
keep that ambiguity.
Turns out Magneto was alive this whole time.
right.
Yeah, he is in the film. He is in this universe, but nobody talks to him. Nobody calls him anymore.
Yeah, he's still trying to get that whole chest piece to move. It's been a lot of years, but he'll get there eventually.
Do we think this is the last time Hugh Jackman will ever be Wolverine, or if Ryan Reynolds said, hey, why don't we just do a Deadpool Wolverine movie? Just two of us, we just have fun. That he'd come back in here to do that.
I think he's done.
I think he will have a cameo in Deadpool 2, but I think it'll be as Hugh Jackman. And what I want is Deadpool to like just learn that Wolverine died in the movies and just be so heartbroken. And he sees Hugh Jackman. He's like, "Why would you do that to us?"
This ties in organically. How about that sweet Deadpool trailer?
Oh my God!
Movie.
Yes.
With thoughts?
I was convinced for a second, like, all right, they're opening it up with the death of Deadpool, and that's like the start of what the end of Mutants is the death of Deadpool.
Yeah.
And for the whole, like, for a little bit, I'm just like, all right, this is kind of crazy, this is kind of wacky, but I'm in. I'm down to
The way
see
they
how
did
this
it was
goes.
really smart. Just like lights go down. I don't know your theater, but it's like finally the previews are over. Remember to turn off your phones. And then it was like Deadpool trailer, but it felt like it was the movie starting.
Well, it was like a Pixar movie.
It's really
You
smart,
get a little
yeah.
Pixar short,
Yeah.
and then
Yeah.
you get the full movie.
Yeah.
It was awesome.
Definitely.
I loved it. I mean, The John Williams Superman score is probably my favorite score of all time, and they used it so brilliantly.
Yeah.
I loved it, and like there was so many Easter eggs in there alone, like Nathan Summers coming soon, and
Oh, like coming. Oh, I see.
Yeah.
oh, I didn't even notice that. Wow.
But also, I had heard, because I only watched it online afterwards, but that Stan Lee was cut out of the theatrical
Oh yeah,
presentation.
there's two different versions of
Yes.
it. Both of
Yeah.
them are really funny.
They are, yeah.
Hope is written on the telephone booth as well. I saw that our second time. As he's coming out after the costume change, you
Yeah.
can see Hope, like exclamation point written on the back.
It's the Dragon Ball Z font. Remember when Hope is written on the side of Trunks' time machine?
Oh, yeah.
It's Hope exclamation point
Oh,
with
is
the
it
two
really?
lines. Yeah,
That's
it's the
amazing.
exact same text.
That's fantastic.
Can you think of anybody right now that could take over the role of Wolverine, or is it going to go to some kind of unknown, and they're going to be able to take it on and see what they can do with it?
Depends on.
Oh, go ahead.
Sorry, I was going to say it depends on. Although technically he should only be like 35, right? Like he should look like he's in his mid-30s because that's when he became Wolverine.
The way they do his aging is always a little bit ambiguous, because.
But yeah, he's always looked like an adult. Like you never had like a Peter Parker sort of phase of him where he's
No.
he's,
Well,
skinny
yeah.
and
No, we
everything.
had little boy like James Howlett in Origins, but yeah, I think an unknown. I also think they just don't need to do it again for a while. I think there's so many other mutants to explore, but
Did you guys notice that Gambit's face on the comic book cover looked a little fat, a little Channing Tatum-esque?
Huh.
It was a big
Oh, I
Channing
didn't
Tatum
even
head.
notice that.
I was like eagle-eyeing him, like that's motherfucking Channing Tatum's head. It's all round and shit. It's not skinny and
Yeah.
properly Remy LeBeau. It's fucking, they're still trying to get that damn Gambit movie off the
Still
ground.
trying.
They're still trying to give him the accent. I think the delay is just him like they just
He can't quite
Yeah.
nail it.
He
They
has like,
just you go in and the whole movie is just him dancing dressed like Gambit. That's the
yeah,
whole
he doesn't
thing.
say a word.
I'm fine with that.
Yeah, I mean, probably still go see it, but I'd
You
want
should
to know
have to
that's what I was
strip
getting
in the
into.
bayou.
But if you think, like, given the success of this movie, and it's certainly going to do great in the box office, it's already done great this weekend. I don't know. I can't imagine them going more than like 3 or 4 years before we see some Wolverine on the film. I feel like that's just such a great character that you don't want to leave that hanging on the vine for too long.
I will see you in 3 to 4 years. This exact same booth.
That's true. We'll be back.
Microphones.
Well, they
don't know, what do
really have to nail their next couple movies without him. The 80s or what is it, 90s X-Men
yes,
movie
they
they're
got
going to do, the New
Supernova
Mutants. Yeah.
Coming
and then-
down the
yeah.
pipe, which will basically think just be Dark Phoenix again.
Which, I mean, you got to start with good
Yeah.
Phoenix first, though, right? Before
Yeah.
you go dark,
Well, I
you
mean,
have to start with regular Phoenix.
Kind of did that in Apocalypse.
Yeah, you saw Phoenix
Ish.
briefly.
Yeah, but we also saw the same thing in X2. Like,
Yeah,
we saw
they-
her briefly, and then we saw what happened in X3. So.
Yeah, they did such a great job setting her up in X2.
Oh, yeah, that was real cool.
damn it, Singer.
Did I hear? So are there plans to do? Because it just occurred to me, how awesome would it? Well, I think it'd be really fun if they did a very, like an '80s full-on '80s X-Men film, like old costumes from like almost like from the animated series, like, and really kitsched it a little bit. Is that what they're doing? Because I think
no,
that
the
would,
80s
that would
film
be
was
awesome,
Apocalypse.
though, right?
That was there. If they had a chance to do it, and at the end of the film, they all kind of appear in costumes, but
Yeah.
it's fucking 10 seconds worth of costumes.
Wouldn't it be great if they did that though? Wouldn't
Yeah,
that be,
I
like,
know.
that's what
legitimately
I
really
want to
fun?
see.
Yeah, like they have never really been superheroes.
Right.
And like just do that, and they came so close, but I think they're so bound to Singer's aesthetic, which worked at the time, but we're now at the point where you can do full comic book costumes, look at everything else Marvel has done. And they're like, I think they were just too late getting to that.
I wish they would do a period piece, like it set in that time
Yeah.
with those costumes and make it bright and make it all those things with a really fucking awesome soundtrack and have it be like all the fun of Deadpool with the accuracy of like Stranger Things.
Yeah, but
You know
no,
what I mean?
they'll probably do it for the 90s. Let's be honest, like the 80s would have been way more fun than the 90s. It's just
Yeah.
gonna be
It's
it's
gonna
gonna
be
be a whole bunch of like
grungy.
grunge and pop, and it's gonna be
Especially when you had the
terrible.
arcades and all that stuff and bright colors anyways with the 80s. Yeah, no, that was a missed opportunity.
We got that Star Wars joke though. Yeah.
Oh, that was an
the
Apocalypse.
third
There was-
one's
there was-
always the best.
Yeah,
or
there was
the worst.
a weird.
Well, this
awkward
is the
meta joke.
first time that an X-Men trilogy has stuck the landing then. Because X3 sucked.
Absolutely true.
Apocalypse was the less, I mean, you could say it either sucked, but it's definitely the lesser of the three
Oh,
of those.
absolutely.
But Logan was the first time that
Yeah.
this is the series that progresses 1, 2, 3.
Oh, it absolutely does.
I
And
mean,
yeah.
after one, you can only go up.
God, that's so true.
Burn.
I love too that you watched like The Last Stand. You're like, man, they can only go up from here, and then they still found a way.
Yeah. So there's always been, just really quick, one last question. There's always been those rumors of an X-Men, a live-action X-Men TV show, and with the rise of Marvel Netflix, I think this is kind of the time. I think this is like the best time to do it. Do you think that we'll see them kind of emerge on either TV or on a distributing platform, be it Netflix, Amazon, Hulu?
Oh, they're gonna try. I don't know. I mean, if you guys have watched Legion on FX, that show was amazing.
It's great, yeah.
It's almost perfect. But they're doing another one for Fox, right? And they just signed dude who played Bill Compton in True Blood as the lead.
Oh god.
Oh yeah, Stephen Moyer's the lead.
Yeah.
and
And I don't know what that one's gonna be about.
Amy Acker. It was
Yep, she's in there. Yeah, from
she's
Angel
there.
and
yeah. So it's Matt Nix who did Burn Notice. It's his show, but I think that's more of that's not the X-Men though. It's like it's looking at what happens to a family when some of your kids are mutants and all the persecution stuff.
Oh,
So
okay.
I think
Okay.
So it's like Alex Mack.
Yes, kind of. It's. You don't remember Alex Mack? I remember that show. It was great. I think it's they're doing what almost every single X-Men movie has done though, which has been like not being an X-Men movie, being like something kind of different. So I think there'll be good shows, but it's not. To your point, I don't know if we're gonna get like the X-Men as a team on TV.
It would be nice though, and we could all hope for something like that.
Yeah, I just want
Yeah.
like a Justice League Unlimited style where
Oh,
every
fuck
episode
yeah.
is a different like grouping of 3 or 4 mutants, and then
And I think they need to do a new cartoon as well.
Absolutely.
There hasn't been an X-Men cartoon since Logan and the X-Men or Wolverine and the X-Men.
I never
Yeah.
watched
was
that.
the
Was it
last
any
one?
good?
There were, you know what,
it
the
had a
animation
couple.
was okay, but some of the stories were really good.
Okay, it's worth checking out.
And I feel like the struggle with that is just like CW, where they can't use a lot of the big tier characters in
Yeah,
their
that's
TV
true.
show. I feel like you'd have that, so you'd end up with just like these beings, maybe like C and D list mutants, and you can never really get the ones that you really want to see.
I guess that's true.
They
yeah.
should just make that a thing. Like there's Supermansion. Do you guys watch Supermansion? Stupid Buddy production. Arizona Crackle.
Do you know anybody that works there? We'd love to get an in.
What I don't know. It is, since my views do not necessarily represent those of Stupid Buddy Productions or their affiliates. But yeah, I think that if they're gonna do that, I wish they would just have fun with it and then make it awesome. These are our B and C listers. These are the guys we have. Now let's run with that and make it fantastic.
Well, also
you know?
keep in mind, Marvel built the Marvel Cinematic Universe out of its B squad,
Right.
too.
Oh, absolutely.
Like,
100%.
we're talking about Marvel's A characters right now, and this is something that Marvel Studios can't have access to. So they were able to build a cinematic universe off Iron Man, who, we all remember, in 2008, Iron Man was not doing too hot. He
Rocket
was-
Raccoon.
Yeah, Rocket,
like
like
all
freaking
of the
Rocket. All those
Guardians of
guys,
the
like,
Galaxy.
within, like, if we're talking when that universe started, like the Guardians were just starting to pick up in terms of their popularity. They were still like a very obscure, like they were still like set 1,000 years in the future when the cinematic universe was just starting. And so Marvel has shown that it's possible to build off C and D list characters as long as you are just stay true to the characters or have a distinct point of view like we have with Guardians. Like Guardians, those guys are the C-list of Marvel. They've been raised and obviously elevated over time, but they are the C-list, but they had...
And
James
they
Gunn
embrace
had-
it. That's the thing.
Yeah, and James Gunn has a distinct point of view, and that's what you need. You need someone like... the reason Legion works is because Yeah, because you have distinct people with points of view, and that's Joss Whedon was able to make the Avengers work, and like you need these people with distinct points of view to make the stuff work, and it doesn't really matter who the characters are. You'll be able to work something with it.
Yeah, and I think that looks like at least Fox's strategy going forward is to kind of embrace their B-level characters. Like we're getting Deadpool, that's going to lead into X-Force with Cable. They're doing the New Mutants. I forget who's directing that. The guy who directed, I think, is Fault in Our Stars. Let me look this up.
But if we can see Cannonball on screen, that'll be enough for me.
I'd love that.
And you got Arya Stark playing Wolvesbane. I mean, that movie looks pretty cool, and I think if you were gonna do like a better X-Men movie, you could restart it with them.
Yeah, and I the rumor is that McAvoy's coming back to be like properly Professor X now, no hair, in the wheelchair, leading the team. I'm excited for that. I think that could be a lot of fun. Maybe that'll be kind of like their kind of 80s, 90s, kind of maybe more fun aesthetic. So maybe.
Just to hear the line, I'm nigh invulnerable when I'm blasting would be great. Just hear somebody say it in a live action film.
What did you guys think about the Berserker finally? Because I feel like this movie really caught it both with Wolverine and Laura. And that's always been a big part of the Wolverine character, was that he would just kind of lose himself to his rage. And I mean, I've seen it in a few of the other movies, but in the fight scenes, and they're not very long, which I kind of like because they're like Western gunfights, bam, 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 and then it's over.
Right, yeah. And I think the I'm trying to imagine this movie without the R rating, and it's almost
I don't know what
funny.
the fuck that would look like.
Yeah, exactly.
It'll look like all the other times Wolverine has killed people in these movies. You
Where they
just
just
kind of see him put his
side-pan.
hands in, and you could just kind of picture what that would do to somebody. This movie actually shows you what those claws do to people's bodies, to flesh and bone, and I thought that was fucking sweet.
Yeah. No, I mean his final like rage run, like because again I was kind of like waffling all the way through, but that last moment, I'm like, oh, this is fucking awesome.
Yeah.
I do like that because it's also like he's filled with rage, but his body's not capable of it until he ends up injecting himself. Then he finally can do it. So I feel like that was a cool moment where it's like he wants to, but his body's not letting him do it.
I love, on that note, the consistency of I see it drives me. One of my pet peeves is when I see films and the whoever it is falls and takes like a nasty fall, and then they're like, oh, okay, well, I'm fine now, and it never comes back. He did a great job of maintaining the limp was consistent, like all of his, the way in which he moved and delivered his lines, and he just looked so weary for most of the movie. And then when he got like pumped up on that serum, he's like, look what I'm like 50 years old, I can still do it. Like, so it played that, it popped that up that much more, because even though he was fighting and there were some pretty fantastic action sequences in this movie, he still moved like somebody who was weary, and just like really pushing through it and looking like somebody who, like when he goes to sleep, he's like asleep in that cot for 2 days.
Yeah.
While the kids are camping, basically. I'm like, yeah, he's probably just like, oh, all I want is just like a recliner and like, golf network.
Yeah.
Like, this looks like this is all that he wants.
He just wants a beer. He
Yeah,
just wants
man.
to sit someplace and drink a beer.
He just wants a bar.
And I think we've all seen that the video that he put from his ADR session where he's.
Oh, it's amazing.
That's so cool to see. If you check it out on Instagram, he's doing the ADR for that scene as he's running through the forest. And so it starts just so you see what a part of the film it is, but then it pans over just to Hugh Jackman doing the ADR work and just seeing him just in street clothes doing his thing, but just really kind of channeling that Wolverine rage.
That's cool. ADR, that's automated dialogue replacement, Frank?
Why that is. Things that you can learn about if you take the world famous studio tour at Universal Studios Hollywood, the entertainment capital of LA.
On that note, we're getting to that point where that's a wrap.
Oh my
Oh my
gosh!
God, the timing
you,
on that.
You can't take the tour guide out of the tour guide.
Yeah, I can't do it.
You might be able to hear this faint round of applause coming from the class next door.
Thank you.
That was for you.
perfect.
That was for you guys.
Yeah,
That
thanks.
round of applause.
Thanks a lot.
Well, next we got Guardians Volume 2.
Oh, yes.
Yeah, April 28th is kicking off the summer season. Summer season.
That is crazy
Oh
soon.
my gosh, I can't even wait. I'm so excited.
The new trailer dropped. We all see that.
Yes.
Yeah.
I've watched it obsessively. I love that Fleetwood Mac song now.
Oh, I know,
The
right?
chain?
I've listened to it
Wonderful.
so many times.
Now we're
I-
not treating Fast 8 as a superhero movie. Just checking.
It's not Fast 8. It's the Fate of the Furious. So get it right, Frank.
I like Fate of the Eight is what I usually call it. You can get both of them.
Cameron's dragging me to go see that.
I'm
I
so
I
pumped.
am not
Yes.
enthusiastic.
And if
about
we're
that.
not gonna, I mean, if we're gonna count Fate of the Eight, we have to count Power Rangers.
Oh yes.
Because
All right.
that is the movie that I don't think I've been excited for a bad movie in such a long time.
Yeah.
And Chinese theater is actually they're playing the original Mighty Morphin on the big screen.
Oh,
Wait,
that's
what?
pretty
They
cool.
are?
Yeah. I was gonna talk to you about this after the podcast.
We have to go.
We gotta wrap it up. We gotta
We gotta wrap it up.
All right.
All right, so closing it out for the podcast of Two Worlds, I'm Trevor Reese.
I'm Chris Fimbres.
From the Novice and Frank, I'm Frank.
I'm Amanda.
Oh, and from Tim Talk, I'm Chris.
I'm Cameron Dexter.
Please listen to all of our podcasts on,
Yeah.
on the Nerdist School Network.
Yeah, make sure to check out the Nerdist School Network for all your podcasting needs.
And go see Logan.
Yeah,
Yeah.
do that too. Oh, hopefully you've already seen it.
We just ruined everything for you.
I think we'll end this podcast with the best word, spoiler alert.
Oh yeah.
Thanks, guys.
The Nerdist School Network. For class and show information, visit nerdistschool.com.